Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to AEW Uncensored. Here with Alan Kaplan. My name is Bill Singh. Just first time doing this podcast. Basically, everything AEW. Myself, AEW brought me back to wrestling. Lapsed fan from 2001 when WCW went under. Alan has kept up with wrestling over the years. How about it, Alan?
Yeah, I've been a fan since 1984, and I never even really walked away. I followed it through the highs and the lows, mostly through WWF/WWE. I know you and I differ quite a bit on that promotion versus WCW. But yeah, no, AEW has been a very interesting second option that really hasn't been in place much since WCW went under. I know we had TNA. We have New Japan, we have other promotions as well, but nothing really until AEW has really been able to give WWE, I guess, a run for their money in regard to star power, in regard to story, in regard to just feeling like an actual competitor.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, you had TNA. Like I said, I probably watched, I could say no more than 10, not even full episodes of wrestling, maybe between 2001 and probably I'd say about 3 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I picked up Ring of Honor. Probably, I was like, I'm going to get back in. I'll start watching Ring of Honor. I'm going to keep up with that on a regular. I really didn't. I started when Lethal had the world and the television title all at once. So I watched it through till he lost the titles, or I forget which title he lost. He might have lost the TV title. Anyway, semantics. And then I watched some match. Then basically it was matches. Brian Danielson. You know, I heard a lot about him. That I missed a lot of his stuff on the indies and stuff because I was away from wrestling. So I got into his stuff in WWE. Watched a little bit of that. And then Kenny Omega matches, some New Japan stuff. I've always been a New Japan fan. Like when all Japan was like the hot shit in Japan in like the 90s and such. Everybody was on All Japan's dick, and I was a New Japan guy because obviously they had a nice working relationship with WCW for a very long time. And coming back now, New Japan is what All Japan was back in the day for Japan, to the hardcore fans. So, I mean, at this point, AEW comes on the scene. Found out Tony Khan is like a huge wrestling fan who is like a book of knowledge, super crazy memory for it all. And I'm looking forward to what's in the future. I'm already excited about what I've seen, you know. So
Yeah, they've been very fortunate in terms of the names that they've signed, who they've really promoted to the front. I mean, I think having Jericho as the first champion was a very wise idea. You have an established person who's really out there with the belt and who's being that one to lead the way. And not to mention, I mean, he's somebody who's reinvented himself over the last 20, 25 years. Somebody who you have representing the company and who will grab a lot of people in who may not necessarily know the brand. I think that, certainly someone like me, unless I have an established face to look up against, it's really hard for me to get involved with an established brand. But, when it's somebody who that helps a lot. Having him there, having Jon Moxley there, obviously having Cody there. You've got, I think, a good representation of talent and a good stable there who have collectively a lot of experience with this business where it doesn't feel like a rookie organization. And I think that's where there's a lot of differences. You have a lot of these little startups that may necessarily feel like they are rookies, whereas something like this, just because of the fact that you look at the collective number of years that all these guys have in this business, from Cody to Jericho to Jon Moxley, now to Matt Hardy, to a lot of these other guys, there is enough talent there where you feel like you really are watching a professional competitor that you want to give your money to.
yeah, Yeah, I agree. I will say I was never the biggest Jericho fan. You know, his WCW run, his Japanese stuff. I mean, he could wrestle. You know, his WCW run, I kind of was always like, eh. But I almost take it like he at this point, maybe he was doing such a good job that I just couldn't stand him because that was the point. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what it is. And but I've always been very particular about wrestlers and stuff, and I never felt he had a voice that really screamed like, you know, wrestling is tough guy, you know, and I'm not I don't subscribe to the whole giant man syndrome. Like I'm not a Vince McMahon. I not a fan of that guy. And his whole thing is built off big, huge guys that, you know, they're not very talented technically or whatever, you know. But watching Jericho, in AEW, I gotta say I'm super impressed, and I'm becoming a fan of his, honestly.
Yeah, I was also never the biggest Jericho fan. What I did like about him is that I felt like every time he would come in for a stint, he'd leave, he would come back again, he'd leave, he'd come back again. And I felt like that whenever he has come back, I know this is a word that gets overused with him, but he has always reinvented himself.
Yeah.
And by doing so, he's been able to keep up with the changes in the business. And he probably is somebody who is a better mind for the business than necessarily an actual performer. And when I say performer, I don't mean the ring. He's fine in the ring. I mean in terms of being a character who you care about.
Right.
So I think that with AEW, he appears to be trying to break the fourth wall a little bit more. And I know, you know, kayfabe's dead. A lot of guys today are trying to break the fourth wall more. He has been doing that, I think, more successfully over the last number of years, both at WWE and here, to the point where he feels the most real. Like, if you listen to his podcast, obviously he's a real guy in his podcast. If you listen to him otherwise in the press and such, other than when he exaggerates his character a little bit, obviously he's a heel, he really does try to be, I guess, as real as one can be in this business. And he knows the right buttons to push with the fans to get them to care about him, whether they like him or they don't.
Right.
And I think that his introduction to AEW and the fact that they did lead off with him as the inaugural champion, he's been able to lead the way to doing that. I mean, you look at, you know, the Bubbly is freaking like, who thought that this little bit of a promo, it's turned into a freaking figure, and as a figure in this limited edition bottle that Ringside Collectibles is going to be selling. It sold shirts. He sells merch. He knows how to press the buttons of the fans to get them to care about the product and about him.
Hey, and they aren't sponsoring us yet. Relax.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm being real about it. You know, I'm just. It's funny that I'm saying all this, and I'm saying all this as somebody who also, I've not been the biggest fan of the guy.
Right.
But he knows what to do with the business. I feel like if you were to take somebody, let's say like a Kenny Omega has obviously a lot of clout. He is great as a performer. Most of his reputation is due to what he does in the ring.
In the ring, right.
But that's basically where it stops with him. He is somebody who is still a novice in regard to promo ability, in regard to being a character, in regard to, enveloping himself with the fans. I think that if you would have taken somebody like him, let's say, and make him an inaugural champion, it would not have had the same type of an impact as Jericho does, right, because you would still have people not necessarily connecting with him outside of his in-ring work.
Yeah, when I would watch his promos in Japan, I wasn't sure if, he's very quirky as a person. I wasn't sure if his promos were purposeful because he was speaking English. I can't even speak English. Speaking English and trying to convey what he's saying to the Japanese fans for them to kind of digest and understand. So I always felt it was choppy. Maybe it was a little bit of that, or maybe it was a mix that he's still not at that point yet where he can do something very comfortable promo-wise. And really grab the attention of the audience and bring them in and to, like you said, like Jericho's, whether you like him or hate him, you like him here and you hate him there. It goes with the whole Judas right now. Everybody's singing Judas. and at the same time they're booing him because he's doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It really it's never anything against Omega. He is going to improve, and the longer he spends here, he will improve because he's got that ability. But that's what's so, AEW, when they first came out, was in a very sensitive place because, you have a lot of people who just hate WWE and they wanted to like AEW. There you go. I'm sure going in, you wanted to like AEW because you simply wanted there to be an alternative.
But I'm realistic. Like, there's people that they want to complain about shit and just kind of write off AEW because they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they said this, they said that. Listen, let's be realistic. Things aren't, number one, people go, NXT. Listen, NXT's had a decade plus they have a brand. It's been there. They have a way they've developed talent, for television and everything. They've brought them off indies, taught them this. AEW is taking indies right onto national television. I'll get into that a little bit maybe later or another time, but in terms of what I feel AEW should do when it comes to training that talent, because as we'll discuss, there's some things, like I said, I dislike about AEW. Not dislike, but I think need to be worked on. But me saying this is like, I'm all in. Like, there's no stopping me. I don't care. I'm not gonna be like, you know what, this guy is, or this woman can't do this, and this guy can't do that, and you know what, I'm over it,
Yeah, and they any kind of faults they might have at the moment, any kind of negatives, I guess, if you want to call it, that they have at the moment, a lot of that is growing pains. And when I say growing pains, it's not just growing pains for the organization in and of itself, but of the talent they're bringing in. Right. Again, outside of a Jericho or a Moxley or a Cody or a Matt Hardy, a great deal of the talent that they've started out with, they are all getting started right now in this business. They've either come from the indies or they're just getting their start here, and they are going to need time to gel and time to become a cohesive unit. And I think that for anybody, who is going to shit on the product right now, they're going to have to understand that is not something that just comes out of nowhere.
No,
you don't flip a switch. It takes time. It really does. If I'm watching a program with Jericho and Matt Hardy, I'm going to go in with the conception that, okay, these are two guys who've collectively been in this business for a very, very long time. I am not going to be expecting any kind of the greasing of the wheels that they're going to have to try to fix things out as I would for two novice performers who are just getting started for the first time. Right.
Well, I want to kind of correct you there, because it's not like they're getting started for the first time, but it's their first time on national television.
Right.
In front of an audience that size. Here's something that, like, ever since AEW started, I've been wanting to do this, and, we've kind of pushed it off a little bit. We've been wanting to do this for a little bit. The one thing that I think a lot of these fans, so-called fans, they it's weird. Like, they tend not to think about certain things, and they tend to just off the cuff say, these guys suck, or they're this, or everything's a high spot, and there's no psychology. Understand where they come from. Okay, like I said, these indie talents have come to NXT. Been built up on NXT, which doesn't have the same audience at the time as the main WWE stuff roster there. So they've been taught how to do certain things. They've had time to work out the kinks in their game and to slow the matches down, and they've been taught to do that. So the thing with AEW is they haven't had that. Again, like I said, I have a thought process on all that, and they're bringing these guys in from the indies. How do indie talent get over? By having crazy high spot matches. That's how, when they go from Austin, Texas to Oklahoma, that's how they go. Now Austin, Texas, they just did a bang up match. Sammy and Darby. They worked together on the indies before. They had this crazy match. They both went all out, all moves set, crazy high flying spot monkey fest. Right? They leave Austin. They go to Oklahoma. They do the same thing. They get fans in Oklahoma now. Their whole goal is to sell merch and get the fans to help support them. So now they go from Austin to Arkansas, right? They do indie shows in Arkansas, whatever. They build their fan base there. Now when they go back to Austin, people are going to be clamoring. They're going to be clamoring because they say, oh, that match was fucking insane. But these guys on the indies, most of them, don't have a steady. They're like they tour. They don't have a steady promotion where they sit in that promotion. They story build. They tell stories in the ring, and on the mic, etc. They don't have the time to do that. So now this is the first time they're really getting a chance to do that. So people have to give them leeway to understand that and learn that. And if you've noticed, while there's still a lot of high-paced action and stuff, a lot of it has been cut down, especially now with no fans. You've really seen a lot of psychology coming into the ring with guys like Darby, Sammy Guevara, who, number one, I think both of them guys are fucking future stars. They're gonna both do great things. I'll get into this tournament that just happened, where it's at the finals with Cody and Archer. But we'll get into that later. Let's just touch a bunch of different things. I mean, we don't have anything set in stone here. I know I'm kind of jumping here, there, and everywhere, but yeah. So I mean, some of the fans need to come. I understand criticism, because definitely we're going to criticize shit where they can pick little things, and it's almost nitpicking. Because I listen to guys' podcasts, I go, they're nitpicking this and they're nitpicking that, but it's almost like super nitpicky. Like instead of I can't even give you an example, but it's just almost like throwaway shit that they're nitpicking. He shouldn't have maybe did that in that spot, and I'm like, I didn't even notice it, to be honest. When I watch for fun, and I try not to drill it down to that kind of didn't make sense in that spot. It's like, if it's super egregious, then yeah, but it's almost like a throwaway,
Well, yeah, a lot of fans today, they want to be mini Dave Meltzers. They want to be able to grade matches. They want to make they're looking for 5-star, 4-star, whatever matches. And they're doing it because of the fact that now the business has opened up so much where there's more of a I guess, an eye hole into how a match works, into how a match is constructed. And so you've got a lot of fans who are nitpicking or who are criticizing because of the fact that they feel good doing that, because they feel like they're being a part of it, that they can try to break down the ins and outs of a match. And the thing of it is, too, is that their AEW, like you said, they're very naturally improving a lot of what they're doing. They don't have the advantage of, WWE has a performance center.
Right.
And that performance center is like one of the most amazing investments that they've made over the last 10 years or so, where they actually have a home base where they can hone indie talent. They can bring somebody in from the indies and put them into that environment
1,000%.
And teach them. Right? You learn the breakdowns of the business. It's not just you're training in a ring. You're learning storytelling, and you're learning all the pieces that AEW has to learn on the fly.
And before that, they had the OVWs, the Memphis
FCW, yeah,
FCW. Then there was a Memphis one. I can't remember the name of the Memphis one. But so we'll go on that little sidebar, because that's something I kind of want to mention. Early on, Dustin Rhodes had mentioned that he would love to have a training center in Texas by his home, to have the talent come and train. And honestly, I think it's an amazing idea. I think Tony Khan should, we'll buy a little plot of land, or we'll find a warehouse that's already there. We'll take it, we'll build it out as a training center. Run shows, local show. You could turn that into a local indie. Dustin can run the indie across Texas. And maybe other surrounding states, and use it to build up your talent, promos, this, that. It's almost like that's another option, is buy out a small indie, like in a particular state or something, and kind of. I know it's like pie in the sky, like buy out an indie, let's be real. Some of these indies are on like literal shoestring budgets. You buy it, you infuse a little cash in it. You bring in talent you want to build up. You try to find like a local TV deal or something, or even a streaming YouTube thing, and now you put them in front of the audience. You put them in front of the camera, and it's almost like an NWA Power. You put them with mics. there's a reason they have mics now because they're on TV, YouTube, you know.
Yeah,
So,
and I know that they argue all the time that they want to be different from WWE. They don't want to be seen as competition at WWE. There is nothing wrong with emulating the Performance Center. There's nothing wrong with emulating that idea because that really is an ingenious piece of the business. And if Dustin is saying, "Oh, well, I'm in Texas, I'd like to have whatever here, and then we can have everybody train." Yeah, like until they were to maybe go through a step of buying out an indie, you could do that. At least start with a performance center of your own and have that as a spot where people can learn the business. And then to what you just said, also to have independent shows in the same way that the performance center does the same thing. There's nothing wrong with emulating that or with, that I think is necessary for the business today, especially if you want to have a lot of up and coming talent.
Right. I mean, that's NXT it's an indie show.
Yep.
Controlled by WWE. That's basically what it is. It's a learning center. So as much as you have the performance center, you have now the in-ring action and the promo action. You can learn that stuff here and apply it there. You know what I mean? I think Dustin right now, he's working with the women and doing promo classes as well. So that's pretty cool. I mean, they got QT Marshall, as Cornette would complain that people aren't naming him correctly. He's from Jersey too. I didn't realize that.
He is, yeah.
Freehold, not far. Like he's like, that's like 20 minutes from here.
Yeah.
Which that's pretty cool. But he's down in Georgia, his school. That's where they've been taping. I'm sure everybody knows that by now. But
yeah.
So yeah, I mean so speaking of taping, I think AEW kind of knocked it out of the park with the with the no crowd thing. They, just the little handful of people that they were able to put at ringside, I think made a huge difference. It's almost like a slight distraction for your ears instead of them just being, it's deadly quiet or whatever, And they had the one episode when there was that transition where Florida kicked everybody out and then they brought everybody to Georgia. I think there was one episode there was nobody in the crowd. And I was like, That episode kind of, it was tough. Sometimes I tune out. I mean, I got to be honest with you. It's, I feel otherwise. I think they had one episode where I really was just like, it was I think it was the Empty Arena Moxley and Hager match. That episode I wasn't invested. I kind of just dazed out, fucking with my phone and.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this. I mean, right now they're in a very tough position, as is WWE, as is anybody in this business, where you really need fans in an audience for a number of reasons. Number one, the fans make the product more exciting. If you're watching a baseball game or a basketball game, if you're a home team fan and they're playing the games at your home stadium, hearing everybody roar makes the game more exciting. Hearing them boo makes it exciting.
No question.
So when you don't have that, it takes a lot of the energy out of the program itself. But then the other even more important reason why crowds are important is because they will take the temperature of a performer and decide whether or not they're getting over or not. And without that, there's a lot of lack of spontaneity. There's a lot of not really understanding whether or not a talent is getting over, if they need to improve, or if they should be leaning more to being a face or a heel, which now you can only get from online fans and criticisms and message boards and everything else, which is very artificial. So they're definitely in a very tight spot right now. I think the entire business is in a very tight spot right now until they do get fans back into the building. It really does sap your energy trying to watch it. I'm noticing that with all of it. If I'm watching WWE or AEW or anything, without anybody there, first of all, it feels awkward. It's a very awkward viewing experience. And what's really funny is, too, I've heard a couple people talk about this. You almost have to watch how loud you have your program on if you're watching it in a quiet apartment, because without fans to drown out the grunting, someone's going to think you're watching a fucking porno or something like that. It's really, really awkward.
Somebody said that about the women's match on WWE.
Right. Well, yeah, the Charlotte Rhea Ripley match.
Yes.
Truly, it really was. It's very awkward watching. You almost just have to reflexively just lower your volume. Yeah, seriously. And Right.
I know that's
Right.
what I do in my porn.
Like, and you know what? Same thing if let's say you're watching a baseball game, but there's no crowds there. I'm sure there's a lot you're going to hear that you normally would not hear over the roar or just the background buzz of a crowd.
Right.
Wrestling was created to be a crowd experience from the standpoint of watching it and from the standpoint of it dictating the future of that brand and of the people who are involved with it. I understand that it's hard to simply say we're going to shut down until this whole situation is resolved, because you do that, you start losing money.
Yeah.
They have to be able to put on money. They have to be able to do this for as long as they can do it for. But I do sometimes question whether or not it is more harmful than helpful to have programming when you don't have that crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a situation. Yeah, it's like you said. It's a tough situation. You know, you have the networks, you have the talent, you have, you don't want to just completely stop. So it's, plus you want to kind of give people something if you can, to keep their minds off of this shit that's going on right now. But I don't know. I almost disagree with you personally. It hasn't affected me as much. I don't watch WWE, so I don't know. But AEW hasn't affected me. I had that one episode I told you, and that was the one where they didn't have anybody, and I was almost like, But otherwise, I've been pretty on, and I've been a little more critical of watching. I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. I watch a lot of the in-ring stuff fairly close, not to a like super fine level, but like the work itself, like the spots, this and that, see who's missing, who's doing, because get it a little cleaner, because again, a lot of indie guys, it's they don't work it, they don't work as clean. They learn to work cleaner as time goes on, especially for TV. And I'm noticing, like, I'm impressed with certain things, but then I'm seeing stuff like the tag match. I guess it was like No Rule. I forget the best friends and Sabin and Jimmy Havoc this past week. It's like it's just all over the place. It's so fucking messy. It's just like stop with the messy. I'm starting to get a little frustrated with their tag teams because of that. So it's like kind of like with no crowds now, instead of having a little crowd watching while watching, now you watch the wrestlers and what they're doing, what they're hitting, what they're not. What's a little too much, what's a little too tedious. Like that's taking a little too long, and you're waiting a little too long, or that type of stuff. So that I'm kind of noticing with the no crowds.
Yeah, I feel like tag team wrestling probably is more affected by the situation than anything else, because tag team wrestling, probably more than even single competition, really does depend on that crowd. You've got the wrestlers in the corner, the hot tags, they're doing this and I remember laughing my ass off that the first time I saw a tag team match without the crowds, it was a women's tag team match for WWE, and you had Nikki Cross in the corner with no crowd going, "Come on, Alexa, and I'm just like, who are you talking to? It looks really bad. Like, it looks really, really right. But the hot tag, exactly.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the hot tag, but the hot tag is the most important part of tag team wrestling. Yes. You almost every match will have it involved at some point in the match, and it's kind of non-existent now when you don't have fans. Right. Someone had mentioned also like a ladder match, for instance, would also be really, really awkward without having fans to egg the people on to get up that ladder. It's
the slow, the last two,
the slow cry, right? To each rung by rung.
The last two, and it's like
right.
Let me pause while I wait for Bob to get off the ground and kick out the ladder or whatever.
But it's curious that you said that. So you overall feel, though, that it's not affecting you so much as a fan. I'd be curious to see what other people think about that, too. For me, I notice it a lot. I feel like whether it's AEW or WWE, I notice it a lot. I don't know.
I'd probably say it's 20-40, like my feeling. Like, just if I were to throw a number at it, 20% would be like, it's cool. I'm fine. I'm just kind of like me. Like, you're looking at certain things and seeing where things can improve in terms of like actual in-ring and, like, they're overdoing this. They need to stop doing this shit. It's, I've been really like, that tag match, I didn't pay attention to it that much the other day, but I look up and I'm going, it's just sloppy. It's just everywhere, anywhere. Penelope Cruz. Oops, wrong one. Penelope Ford. She's in. They got to throw her in there to do something. It's like, I get it, but enough of that. It's almost too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I the Orange Cassidy being in everything that the Best Friends do. I love OC. Like, he's the man. Like,
No, me too.
I love the character, so don't get this wrong. But it's almost like, do we need Orange Cassidy to dive on everybody, every match the Best Friends have, whether it's a single match or a tag match? Does he have to be involved somehow? And that's the other thing. It's almost like wrestling with ECW. I want to say with ECW got away from the refs having any fucking control or any disqualification. And, like, I think ECW basically ruined wrestling when it comes to the ref controlling a match and disqualifications and cheating, blatant cheating and all that. So it's almost like,
yeah.
That's another little side tangent I had to go on, but it's almost like it goes back to the Orange Cassidy and Penelope Ford just, constantly in a match doing something, Well, can we disqualify the Best Friends? Can we disqualify Kip Sabian? That type of thing. But that's just me. I mean, as much as, like, I was heavily in WCW, like, the luchadors kept me for the action. The other guys kept me for the story. And some of the lucha stories, don't get me wrong, but, a lot of theirs was more wrestling based until you got to the title picture, shit like that. But, but then the story was built for the bigger guys, the Stings, the Nash, the Hogans, the Razors, Scott Hall, DDP, that type of stuff in that mid-90s, So it's almost like I enjoy the crazy, high-flying shit, but I also can we just have some good matches that tell the story?
There needs to be a balance. A balance is important. Anybody could criticize Vince McMahon for back in the day. He really cared mostly about the big men. He cared about the Hogans and the Giants and the Diesels and all that. But he still did have a balance. If you were having anybody fighting for the IC title, normally the IC title, it wasn't exactly cruiserweight, but it normally was smaller guys who were working their way up to that heavyweight title. And so you did at least have a mix in a show of big talent and small talent, so that you don't just have smaller guys across the board only who are all performing the same way. If every match has flippity flips and dives off whatever, then it all gets tired if it's all the same. I agree that there does need to be more of a balance. There has to be more of a, versatility in the product. Right. And they probably would behoove themselves certainly to try to maybe get some, like, bigger talent or some more talent that stays grounded so that you can go back and forth and change up the tempo of a program.
So with that being said, you want to just discuss some of these WWE cuts that they made and what and who maybe we think could AEW could benefit from and or give our ideas on that? I mean, who,
sure,
and why, type of deal?
Totally. And I do want to preface that by saying that when it does come to just simply, and a lot of this is fantasy booking, this guy got cut, when it makes sense for him to go here. The thing to also think about is that AEW is right now in the same type of position that everybody else is in. They have to be very careful. Well, I understand that they're run by a lot of money. I get that.
XFL, I think, was a big factor in those cuts. So I think it's a little
I think you're right too. But that's not what I mean. Yeah, no, but what I mean is this. What I mean is that not so much that, XFL had in fact, I think a lot to do with it. I mean that AEW will not necessarily be able to just gobble people up, because they also have to now be very careful of their finances, the way every corporation in the country right now needs to be careful of their finances.
Right. No, I agree. But don't forget, these guys they're not allowed to go. They're under contract till July.
Right.
So we got that time. Not saying the world will be back to normal, but there's still a little time.
Sure.
If you start getting house shows, not house shows, weekly tour, and even if it's 25 to 50% occupancy, you start getting crowd money back, you start getting merch money back, that type of stuff. So, and Tony Khan's smart in terms of business. People rip on him and his father about their sports teams and shit, and but this is a little different. It's not really, you're not, a guy's talent can be, if you hire, you're gonna pay good money for guys that can do the job in wrestling, versus you pay good money for guys in the NFL who are coming out of, say, the draft, and it's always a crapshoot. So forget what they do with basketball and soccer. In terms of wrestling, it's a different animal than those two. So it's like, the money you're gambling more so than not is going to pay off, and not to gamble heavy money on guys that aren't proven. So with that said, who would be your top pick for AEW to take over? Not take over. Pick up.
I would say, if I had to say number one, it would be EC3. EC3 is somebody who was really, really wasted. I mean, using the term wasted doesn't make sense. He literally wasn't used by WWE. He was on a couple of Alexa Bliss shows, and that was basically it. And he barely did a thing. And he was somebody who was such a staple of TNA. And he is somebody who I think could almost be like, I don't want to call him an MJF clone, right, but he is definitely somebody who I could almost see partnering up with MJF. Right. The two of them would probably, he's got that look, he's got that personality, and the two of them could probably make a very good tandem together. He would be my number one.
I would almost say MJF would, if you can't really say he's an MJF clone because he's been around way longer than MJF, so it's almost like.
True, but they have that same type of, I guess, they have that same kind of build, they have that same kind of personality, and.
What do you mean build, man? You see EC3, that dude's a fucking specimen.
Well, that is true. That is true.
MJF, I like him, I love the guy, but he's not built like that EC3 dude. I know of EC3 by name. I don't know anything about his work. I've heard he could talk.
Okay.
I heard he could talk. I heard he's not the best wrestler. But you don't need to be the best wrestler if you could talk. You got to be serviceable. That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm all aboard on EC3. I think he's got a look. He brings, people tout him. People want him. So if I see that, I'm almost like, okay, for sure. My number one draft pick, since you got yours, would be Rusev.
Yeah, and he would be number two for me, for sure.
I mean, before like the whole year leading up to them opening this, what did I say? They misuse, like, I didn't watch WWE. I really didn't watch weekly or anything like that. But it's like if you're in enough Facebook groups and pages, and you get to see things peripherally, and you get an understanding of what's going on, you could see Rusev super hot. Then WWE kills it. Rusev, super hot. WWE kills it. Like, what are you doing? Like, Rusev Day, like, I enjoyed, like, I would watch those little skit commercials at the T-shirt factory and all that. And, it's like the guy's, he's got to be killing in merch. He's super over. He's super popular. And then all of a sudden he's nothing. Or, you're throwing him in there. Him and his wife are divorcing or whatever. And, then he's off TV. It's like, what are you doing? This guy's super talented. He's either a beast heel or he's a great baby face. He's done it. He's done it all. Now, I think in AEW, going back to this, I've been saying this for how long? Even before AEW, like, I would love him to leave and go do, like, I think maybe as far back as even saying Ring of Honor or New Japan or something. But once AEW came into the mix, I'm like, that's the guy. They're not doing the right shit with him. That's the guy. Him, obviously Bray Wyatt. Obviously they do good things with Bray, but I think they just they do it and then they ruin it. Then they do it, then they ruin it. Same thing as Rusev, but they're a little more consistent, it seems, with Bray Wyatt. So for me, Rusev in AEW, what AEW kind of lacks, in my opinion, is monster heel. So Rusev right off the bat, monster Russian heel, boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he would also provide size. So again,
Yes.
there's another example of where, AEW is lacking a lot of big men. I mean, EC3, like you said, he's a big man too, but Rusev is a different. He can be like this monster heel big man where you can probably have somebody like him help to have more of those slow down matches and such while still being very, very entertaining.
Right.
And frankly, he can do it as a heel or as a face. He's proven that he can work both sides of the fence.
Exactly. I think
So
AEW right now needs heels. So he's versatile, but he would be a perfect monster heel to come in and, take the run at, like, say, Moxley or whoever the next face champ, babyface champ is. So let's see who else we got here. Who else would you take? Who would be your next? Would you agree with Rusev coming?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, he'd be my number 2. Oh, yeah. If I were, when I do a lot of fantasy baseball, when I'm drafting, I pick my number 1 guy. Normally, whoever I pick number 2, I almost feel like I could flip flop one way or the other. I'd be happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. I would take Rusev number 2, like immediately behind EC3.
Okay. Do you need a list?
Actually, yeah, because I have a number of the names in my head, but I know that they've also been adding to them recently.
All right. So there's Gallows and Anderson.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick, Zack Ryder, Eric Rowan, Heath Slater, Leo Rush, Sarah Logan, Deonna Purrazzo. I don't know if these are even wrestlers. I think Sarah Logan is. No Way Jose, Kurt Hawkins, Mike Kanellis, Maria Kanellis, Aiden English, Eric Young, Primo, and Epico Cologne. MJ Jenkins, I don't know who that is. And they just released Axel
Curtis Axel. Yeah.
And I think there was somebody else between those two, but I can't remember.
Well, they also released Briscoe, this guy who's been with them since like the mid '80s, which is an interesting release. So
fuck that guy.
Yeah, the Stooge, exactly. So I like Aiden English, first of all, because Aiden English, again, is another guy who worked really well with Rusev, and he was a really big part of that whole creative Rusev Day team.
Really?
He's somebody who I feel that, again, comedy-wise, he did pretty well in the ring as far as, from performance stuff. He's somebody who also wasn't really used as much as he probably could have been. Where, again, he's kind of like, I wouldn't call him like a 5-tool player necessarily, but he is somebody who certainly could be great on the mic and also do well in the ring. I think the Drake Maverick, that was a waste. Drake Maverick is somebody who he has a lot of passion, somebody who really does fit the AEW mold really, really well. Again, they already have like a lot of guys who do what he does, but you really can't have too many of someone like him, as far as somebody who has a lot of presence in the ring and who's really been doing really, really well, just holding their craft and just having a lot of good rapport with the fans.
Who's that Rockstar Spud? Is that him?
Oh, man, I'm trying to remember if that's the same guy.
Because people keep talking about it. Like I said, I don't know anything about it.
Might be the same guy. Yeah. Some of these guys, I just know them by it's Drake Maverick.
Were him and EC3 like a team at some point?
I think they were doing some work together.
Yeah, I think that's what they keep talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you would think both of those guys, huh?
Yeah, and then if I had to pick a third guy in there too, Heath Slater. Heath Slater is awesome. Heath Slater is somebody who, again, really good on the mic, right? He's got a lot. He's really funny. He's really good at the ring. Exactly. He's somebody else who originally WWE was doing some good work with him, I think, and then all of a sudden they just wasted him.
I got a nice angle, like a cool angle. I think that would work for him. All right. So you had Heath Slater was a choice for me. I don't know Heath Slater's wrestling from Dick. I know him off of the Major Wrestling Figure podcast with Ryder and Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I know him. He was on there a lot, So for me, Heath Slater's personality, like if AEW just, what they do is they let you do with you. versus what WWE like tries to put you in their box and cookie cut you how they want you. So I don't know that they stifled him as a human being, but I think if you let him be him, I see like charisma, star. I don't know how he works in a ring, but just charisma wise, like I said, ring work necessarily doesn't mean it all if you got the right
Exactly.
mic work, the charisma. So I'm huge. I'm a little pissed off that Cody Rhodes was like nope in that one interview about Heath Slater, but he was all on Zack Ryder's dick. No,
Yeah, and a lot of that could be because we don't know with Cody.
Friends,
Cody may know. He could be either swerving or he could know a lot of these guys behind the scenes, and there may be reasons that he simply doesn't think they'd be a good fit because he does know them. Again, it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of this show. Cody is one of those guys who he's got a lot of pedigree in this business, and he's been around for a long time, and he's worked his way up. Where he probably all these guys on this list, these guys who are cut, he probably is able to say right off the top of his head, great, nope, great, nope, great, because it's just what he knows about them. So if he's saying no, it either is a swerve or he may know something about him behind. Maybe he sucks in the back. Maybe he's not good morale. Maybe there's something else that's off about him.
I can't see it with his personality though. He could be pulling the he could even be trolling him. You know what I mean?
He could be trolling. It totally could be trolling.
Maybe they're really good friends and he's just trolling them.
Sure.
But I was like, man, did he really say that about Heath? So here's my thing. Do you listen to Wrestling Figure podcast or?
I do.
Okay, so you know the whole Stang, you know? Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
His whole Sting. He's a huge Sting fan. And they Stang and they did a live and he played. So my whole thing is you bring him in, and you bring him in as Surfer Sting. You know, he gets the Surfer Sting gimmick. He's got a little bit of a flat top now. You just maybe bleach it or something, and you get him instead of going ow like Sting used to be like ow. You give him the yeah baby. You know, and then you could turn him over to the Crow Stang. You know, like eventually like. I think it'd be funny, like a bit, but maybe you don't want to go that route. But that's just me, like funny fantasy booking in my head. I'm like,
sure.
I would almost bring him in as Stang, like just bring him in as, you could even Heath Stang Miller, like whatever you want to do, and he just kind of plays it up to a degree. He doesn't have to totally be like the Sting gimmick. I don't mean that, but just maybe like instead of like ow, just be like yeah baby, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking of the Wrestling Figure podcast, I mean, you Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder, I mean,
he's got cachet. He's been there. He has a lot of fans and stuff. I get that, but I don't know. He's too WWE to me.
You think so?
Yeah, to me it's that too WWE. It's like it's hard. I don't know. It's like caricature almost, like the super jacked chiseled. I got a tan. I got to put my fake, patch of hair in my head so they don't see my bald spot. And I got the spiky hair, which is goofy. And I don't know, just me, whatever. I mean, I get it. He brings money. So money brings money. So, yeah, you pay money, you get money. I understand that.
Yeah.
So you got that. I almost want Kurt Hawkins just because, like I said, his podcast, I think the guy's down to earth as fuck.
Yeah.
Like he's really legit, like just a nice guy. Even if he's a role player at some point, like he doesn't, but maybe he's got the ability to be that talented star that maybe he necessarily didn't have in the WWE. What else did I say? Eric Rowan. Perfect.
Oh,
perfect.
Sure.
I think right away, you could bring him in July and work him right into the Dark Order angle. At some level, maybe we could fantasy book that in another episode, but I for sure see like either, Harper gets, I'm sorry, not Harper, what's his name now? Brody Lee gets tired of the bullshit and he's like, that's it. Yous are not doing it. And here comes, Rowan, whatever you fucking call him when he's over there. Or you bring him in and he's the foil. And they have a program against each other. You know what I mean?
Sure.
which should
Sure.
be interesting. So
Yeah.
I think honestly that would be like my list. I mean, Gallows and Anderson would be cool. But you know, if they don't, I wouldn't cry about it.
Yeah, Gallows and Anderson, they're okay. I don't know, and again, it's not really fair to say because I feel like every time I've seen them, anytime I've really been interested by them, it's been because of their dynamic with AJ Styles. So if you take them away from AJ Styles, can they really walk on their own? I don't know.
But
It's hard to say.
But if you want to do the whole Bullet Club thing in AEW, it's
Sure,
100%
sure.
possible. They've got more.
Yes,
They've got more Bullet Club members than
that is
anywhere.
true.
I mean, maybe New Japan does still, but I mean, you got
Yeah,
the Bucks, you got Kenny, you got Hangman. You could even bring Skrull in. Like I'm sure he could work
yeah.
with whoever he wants. Yeah,
So if anything, they may work as better as bit players in a faction like that than necessarily as their own independent tag team, if you know what I mean. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Again, it's not really fair for me to say because I feel like I haven't seen enough of them outside of the Bullet Club and outside of being with AJ Styles and such.
Right.
So,
Well, that's the only reason I would say bring them in for their cachet, plus a
yeah,
big name tag team, and
yeah,
obviously they go for the tag team division. So
yep.
the revival is, I'm almost
Oh,
guaranteeing they're coming, which would be cool. A nice little
yeah. I don't
addition.
see how they're not. I mean, they definitely are very hungry. They left for a reason. They know that they want to be performing, and I don't really see where else they would go if they really do want to just immediately start working again.
Yeah. For me, I don't know much about them or even Gallows and Anderson. So it's like, for me, it's all about with them is the build up between the Bucks and Cody and them. That kind of got me interested in them and
Yep.
seeing what they do. But you want to kind of end it right now? We'll kind of do a quick little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you guys don't mind, subscribe to us, like, share, whatever. This is a first, so it's a little rough. It's a little, so we apologize, but we're gonna be just discussing AEW, not necessarily episode by episode, but we'll talk all things AEW, ideas, thoughts, stuff like that. Also, we'd like to make it where once we get a little settled in and we figure out how to do it and all, where we could have any listeners maybe hop on with us and just have discussions with us and give your opinions on things and, hey, I like this and I like that, or this show was good, this was great on the show, or even discuss the show a little bit. And we're going to bring our friends on as well, in a similar fashion, but we really want to make it more interactive with people listening, not just us yapping back and forth, just to have a little more fun with it and a little more a broader viewpoint, because I'm pretty strong in my viewpoints, as you'll see. Alan knows I am, and I don't break them too often, but it's good to like have people slap me and say, well, I think this, and and I mean, check us out on Facebook. We got we have a Skype chat for anybody who listens that you can join. We put the link in the description, so feel free to join that chat. And from there, we could hopefully hop you into the live video chat, like right here, and have discussion with us. So feel free to join that chat, follow that link, and for me, that's about it. How about you?
Yeah, no, this is great. And yeah, I agree. The interactive part, I think, will be really fun. I think that I would really love to see a lot of comments for this inaugural video, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that we've said where people are like, oh, that's BS. Here's what I think. That's what we want. I mean, we want to really be able to have that interaction, to have that play-by-play as far as being able to work off of each other, because I mean, I'm sure we all agree as wrestling fans, everybody feels very differently and in their own way about the business, and specifically about AEW. So
I kind of feel like I'm listening to a podcast and I almost want to just jump in, like, yo,
me too.
And then I get frustrated. I'm like, because I'm not the guy that necessarily wants to call in. Like, I'm not there when it happens. I listen to podcasts later. Like, I'll listen to like, say, Wade Keller's, like, after whatever, right after the show he does it, and like Solid Monster, like right after the show he does it. And I'll listen to those later on, like the next day or whatever, and you almost want to jump in, but you're like, it's not live, and I'm not waiting after the show to be on. At least with this, it's like, there's people that do want to do that stuff. So That's what we want. We want you to be like, "No, you said this, f you, bro." Like,
Yeah,
what do you mean? Kiss my ass. Like I disagree for this, and then we could back and forth, and like get a little
totally.
discussion going.
Yeah, it's called uncensored for a reason. We really want there to be able to be that freedom of expression with just being able to, shoot the shit back and forth. And if there's something that we say that nobody agrees with, or somebody wants to back us up, it's like, great, let's have some of that interaction.
Yeah, for sure. And we just want to say thank you, and hopefully,
Thank you.
You liked this one, and if you did, let us know. If you didn't, let us know what we could change. That's it. Have a good one.
Yeah, peace out.
Peace.